What's up, people? Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Finance Rebel Show. I'm Kamari Ellis, your host. As always, y'all know every Wednesday we do Wealthy Wednesdays where I'm here to answer your questions live. Today we have a little bit of a different format today. We're changing up just a little bit. We got a special guest. We got a superstar in the house. We have one of the most extraordinary, most known, most sought out caterers in the Philadelphia area. And actually, not just the Philadelphia area, the entire Eastern Seaboard, Mr. David Sims from Eatible Delights. So we're going to talk to Dave about his journey, his business, why he's been able to stay in business because we went through the pandemic. He was able to survive and thrive through that. And so as I bring Dave on, make sure you share this out with someone who is an aspiring business owner, potentially an aspiring chef or an aspiring caterer, or just someone that's looking to hear a great conversation about business and money. Without further ado, Mr. David Sims of Eatible Delights. How are you, sir? David, sorry about that.
I'm here. I said good evening. How are you? And to all the listeners, how are you?
Good, man. Finally got you on. Been wanting to have you on for a minute.
Yep. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, Mr. David Sims of Mr. Eatible Delights, you are a chef, a business owner, an employer. You wear a lot of hats. But I got to ask you this one question. Why food? Why cooking? Why the food business? What about it made you get into it?
Why food? Why the food business? Food is a aphrodisiac to get people together. No, for real. For real. I mean, if you think about it, this is how I view food. I view it as an opportunity to bring people together. It's an opportunity to have a great conversation. But more importantly, I have recently developed a new thought process or new mantra. My new thought process is everyone is afforded a whole piece of pie, a whole pie. The best thing to do with that pie is bring it to the table and share it. There's 8 slices of pie in every pie. I can't eat all 8 slices. I might can eat 2. But if I bring that pie to the table and I share it with others, that's the start of a great conversation. It's the start of a great relationship. And it's the bigger start of other people getting their own pie to share with others.
You done went deep on this. On the very first question. I love it. Well, I mean, because part of our story is definitely sharing the pie. Me and Dave is a friend, just to put it out there, for full transparency. We were talking the other day because he called me. I don't know if you want to share why you called me, Dave.
Oh, absolutely, because that's important.
Okay, all right, so we'll get to that.
Okay.
So Dave called me the other day and we were just talking, and I was like, Dave, I don't even think you realize how our relationship got going. And I'm going to circle this back into a conversation we often have on a Finance Rebel show. Dave actually helped me with an event I was doing many years ago for the city commissioner's office. A couple folks got together and we said we wanted to inspire more people to get involved in voting, to inspire more people to understand how the process actually works. But we, like typical Black folk, we had no budget. And so we need food. We can't have a gathering without having food. And so somebody has suggested that we reach out to Dave. And so we had a conversation. And at first Dave was like, no. He's like, why am I going to do this? Because this is going to cost me money. And he said he would be willing to do it if we all contributed something. And I forget what happened. But I made a promise to Dave. And I said, well, listen, if you do this for us, I'll owe you. And for those of you who know me, I take my word very seriously. And he went ahead and did it. And not only did he do it, he did it at a fantastic rate. Dave likes to, he's not your typical, how can I put this? He's not your typical chef, your typical Black chef, where all he does is fried chicken, fried fish. And that's no shot to anybody that likes fried chicken and fried fish, because I love me some fried chicken and fried fish, but he likes to experiment. He likes to get fancy a little bit. And for this event, he definitely got fancy. And this is an event he didn't get paid for, ladies and gentlemen. And so I was forever, I don't want to say indebted, but I wasn't forever grateful that he took the time and he invested in me into the project that we were doing. And I actually wound up making some good relationships out of that event as well. So again, I was thankful for that. But in turn, I wound up doing a social media for his business. And that social media kind of got a look, because I asked a couple of our friends and a couple of Dave friends to kind of spread the word about Dave, because I'm always about spreading Black businesses. Many of y'all know me and been watching the Finance Rebel Show. Every opportunity I have to talk about Black business, I take it. And so I got a couple people together and we shared it. Now, the couple people that say, well, it doesn't make sense to share anything about Dave right now because he wasn't selling anything. And I always say social media is social, and meaning that it's all about the relationships primarily. And so if we can tap into the relationships, we can help this business grow just by highlighting the business. But lo and behold, we did that. And we wound up having him get a relationship with a major university in the West Philadelphia section. I'm not going to mention any names. I don't know if you want to mention names or not, Dave, but he wound up getting some work out of that. Just for some folks getting together and saying, we want to highlight this business. And it got the attention of one of my friends who was on the alumni committee of this very, very prestigious college in Philadelphia that don't have a whole lot of Black caterers. So to me, that was a win-win. To me, I was able to reciprocate the gratis that Dave had done for me by doing that event. And then we have been doing that kind of back and forth throughout the years. Our relationship's always about, I don't want to say give and take, because I think that's a little bit too superficial, but it's give and give. Let's call it like that, give and give. We're always trying to bring that pie to the table that Dave talked about. And so again, he called me the other day because I'm a customer. I patronize him often. And he called me and he said, I want to give you some food. But not just me. He wants to give his loyal customers some food. So Dave, talk about why you called me the other day.
So Kamari and I have basically been doing things for the last 8 or 9 years. And we were busy during the Christmas time. I'm very thankful that we made it through COVID. Very thankful that we had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Very thankful that we had a Christmas that was great. And I need to tell you all out there, not without bumps and bruises, because there were some of those as well. But I called Kamari because I'm one that believes in a relationship of reciprocity. That is a healthy relationship. If I'm in business and the only thing that I'm doing is taking products and services and goods from you, and I'm not giving you anything in return, then why would you continue to patronize me for years and years and years later? People want to know that if you're doing good business, but that you're also providing some sort of reciprocity. So we didn't have an opportunity to send out to some of our great customers at Christmas time some of the things that we traditionally do, which is just send a nice spread, just on Eatable Delights. So I reached out to Kamari. I was like, "Hey, Kamari, um, I need you to come on by on New Year's Eve and pick up some food." He said, "Pick up some food for what?" I said, "Because I want to just say thank you for supporting us through the years and supporting us through the year, and just be able to provide you and your family with just some nourishment and some feed and some good food. And this is our way of saying thank you for your loyal service, for great business, for you sowing seeds into us." There's 1,000 caterers in the city of Philadelphia. Um, we have great food, and sure we're well known. But what is it that I can do for my customers that sets my bar and my standard a little bit higher? What is it that I can do for you as a customer that makes you think about Eatable Delights? What is it that I can do for you all? And not just because, but because I want to add value to our relationship. I want to strengthen our relationship. And most importantly, I want to say thank you.
Where'd you get the idea for that? I mean, I know you say you believe in reciprocity, but I don't see a lot of caterers doing that. And I know a lot.
Because I have a word for them that I'm not going to say, because I'm not going to throw the other caterers under the bus. I'm just going to say because they should be. They
Okay.
should be. So in these COVID times where I can't do, which is what I'm accustomed to doing, which is having a customer appreciation party, and I bring 80, 90, 100 people down to the African American Museum and say, come eat and come drink on me, and you tell your story about your relationship with Eatable Delights, and I tell you my story and why I value you. This is an easier way. Every caterer, every food service person, every restaurant in America throws food away on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. Things go bad, they get hidden in the back of the refrigerator. And I'm not saying that we pulling out those hidden things to give to people, but every caterer, every restaurant person, we overbuy, we underbuy. Something can be made into something, and it's not a big thing to me anyway to show value to the people that spend money with Eatable Delights, to say, hey, by the way, I value your service, I value your friendship, I value our relationship. Let me provide something to you once a year. And that's where the idea developed from. It just developed from, you can spend your money over there at somebody else's catering, or you can spend your money over there, but I want to give you a reason to continue to spend your money with Eatable Delights.
You want to earn their business.
I want to earn their business.
I like that. I like that. So, I mean, you know I'm a fan, right? And
Yeah.
as y'all all know, I talk about the value of free, right? Free is the funnel. Some people like to say it. I don't look at it that superficial, but it is true. But when you give somebody something, you truly give it from the heart, it's a deposit, as Dave said, it's sowing a seed of value, of gratitude into another heart, into another mind, into another soul. And business at the end of the day is personal. And so if you can develop and sow enough seeds into enough people, over time you'll develop a good business. At least a business that will take care of you and your family. I'm not going to say you're going to be Warren Buffett, because that's a whole other level, or Jeff Bezos, because that's a whole other level, but you'll be able to do well. You'll be able to do really well over time.
You
But
said
Dave,
something.
go
Let
ahead.
me. I just want to capitalize on something that you said, and you said you used the word deposits. I think that we all need to understand that life is built on deposits. It's not built on withdrawals, because if you don't have anything to deposit, when you go to make a withdrawal, there's nothing there.
Well, you preach it now, sir. All right. You took my word and then remixed it. I like that.
Yep.
But Dave, let's start from the beginning. Like, where are you from? Why food? Why Philly?
So I'm from New York, um, and it's in my blood. My mother cooked for the Head Start program. My father was a chef, but the interesting thing about my father being a chef is I didn't grow up in a household with him, because my mother and father separated when I was a baby. I did my first catering job when I was 20 years old. And I need to tell all the listeners out there that, it's not all sunny and bright, because even in the midst of me doing my first catering job at 20 years old, there was some challenges, because growing up in the streets of Harlem in New York, there were a lot of drugs around. And growing up in the streets of Harlem in New York, that means that I did a lot of drugs. And I remember my first catering job that I had a partner. We worked together, not a solid partner as in a business partner, but just being real, just keeping it 100. I went out and got high the night before.
Mm.
So my partner had to come in and had to rescue me and finish up the meal, and then we had to run and go serve it. And it wasn't in the beginning pretty, but it's not really how I started, but it's how I finished. Um, Came to Philadelphia when I was 22 years old, and had a business partner named Tracy Booker Harris, that her and I was Edible Delights Catering in the beginning, and we were together for 2 years. And I need to tell you all that I came to came to Philadelphia, not knowing how to drive, not having a car, not having a license, but having that sincere effect of bringing people together through that food. I did my first catering job back in Philadelphia in 1990 in the back of an apartment complex in Logan. The apartment complex name is Harmony House. And we did an outside street festival. And she said, "Do you want to start a catering business?" And I shrugged my shoulders and I said, "Okay." So, I mean, just like that was the beginning. We stayed together for 2 years, and it was challenging and hard on her and her marriage because I didn't drive. So, every place that they came, they had to pick me up. They had to take me to get the food. They had to pick me up to get the food. They had to take me to the location and then drop me off at home.
Dang.
So we did that for 2 years. Well, the rubber hit the road when we did our first big job for Martin Luther King. We were doing their prom, and they asked us for
Martin Luther King High School.
Martin Luther King High School.
Okay.
They asked us for a COI. And if anybody knows what a COI is, a certificate of insurance, and we ain't have one. We ain't have a certificate of insurance, much less a license. But my business partner and her husband went downtown that day, and they got the business privilege license that day, and they got the certificate of insurance, and we did that event, that prom, at the Ben Franklin Ballroom for 150 kids, and that was in 1993.
Now, what was it like? What was it like doing such a big? Because that's big. 150 is pretty big. What was that like?
It was a lot of moving parts. And
Were you ready?
No, wasn't ready. But we got ready that day. We did what we had to do, and we took the food and we fried the chicken and we made the meatballs and we made the pasta salad and we did everything that we had to do. But one thing that I didn't know until we got there, that my business partner at the time had got the license, and where they had on the license the name of the person, her name was the only person on that license. My name wasn't on that license. And that was Edible Delights Catering. And I didn't say anything because I had to get through that night. And that was the end, basically, of the last event that we did in that May. And we did the event, and, she took the name, and we eventually separated. But I still had that burning desire, and I still had that passion in me. So
Wait a minute. Back up a minute. What was the name of the company again?
Edible Delights Catering.
Okay. That's not different than what it is now, right?
That is different than what it is now. It's now Eatible Delights Catering. So fast forward.
Edible. Okay.
Edible.
Okay. I see.
So fast forward to 1996, when I had the opportunity to shine. My first big job was a company in Texas contacted me and said, "We need you to do Caesar salad for $750 for the Phillies All-Star game," and they had 20 caterers. They reached out to me again and said, "Oh, by the way, can you do the trailer for Aretha Franklin?" That was that was July 10th, 1996. I got licensed on June the 26th, 1996. And that was the official beginning of Eatible Delights Catering. The reason that the name is Eatible Delights Catering is because on that application, it said, "Have you ever been in business with anybody else under this name in the last 2 years?" And I started thinking, I said, damn, if I say Edible Delights, she gonna come back and take my millions when I make millions one day, because she gonna be half the owner. So I quickly changed it to Eatible Delights right there on the spot.
So did y'all have bad blood, have a bad breakup when y'all went separate ways, or why did you feel that way about her at that time?
We didn't have a bad breakup. We kind of had a silent breakup. We kind of never talked about it.
So y'all ghosted each other.
We ghosted each other.
As the young folks say these days.
Yep. So I sat around in 1996, and at that particular time, I was also working for the Olive Garden, and I kind of waited for the phone to ring. And after all summer long, after that event, when the phone didn't ring, I was like, I think I better do something if I want this business to survive. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Logan. I bought a freezer and put it in the second. I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. I put the freezer in the second bedroom. I used my refrigerator when I had catering jobs. And when it was the wintertime, I would put the food outside the window.
But real quick, I want to go back, because in 1993, you did Martin Luther King High School prom, 150 people. Fast forward to 1996, you were doing an event for 750 salads for the All-Star game. But you just said you work for Olive Garden. So Edible Delights was a side hustle, largely, it sounds like,
Correct.
in the very, very beginning.
Yep. I work for Darden Restaurants coming up through the ranks. I work for the Philadelphia Art Museum for the Restaurant Associates. My first restaurant job was Pizza Hut. So I went from Pizza Hut to the Olive Garden to the Olive Garden to the Art Museum, the Restaurant Associates, and then finally in 1999, I worked for La Terrace Restaurant, which was
Well, I bring that up. I bring that up because many people think, it's you get a business, you start, it's smooth sailing, you get rich, you retire, and right off into the sunset.
not
But
even
clearly,
close. You got to pay some dues. You got to pay some dues.
okay.
So, with that being said, I hustled, and I hustled every day, and I worked hard, and I struggled, and I scrimped, and I took Rob Peter to pay Paul, to pay Mary, to pay Jane, to not paying Peter, to not paying Paul, to doing everything that I needed to do, and stumbled and fell down and got up, and stumbled and fell down and got up for many, many years. It wasn't just opening the doors of a business. My first place was on Lehigh Avenue. We talking about in the early 2002s. Now, mind you, in the mix of all that, let me just also throw in the spin that I was in the middle of addiction in the late 90s. So in 2000, I checked into one day at a time.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. So had a drug addiction, and checked in 2000 and one day at a time, and the program suggested that I stay 6 months to a year. I ended up staying 2.5 years to almost 3, and got everything together, got everything clean, got my driver's license back. In the midst of doing all that, I had got my license suspended, and just at this point, I was kind of like churning the butter, like this is what I wanted. Came out.
What was your drug of choice?
Crack cocaine.
Mm.
Cocaine.
Okay.
Yeah. And in 2002, checked out a one day at a time and got a place on Lehigh Avenue and did a small breakfast restaurant. I lived in a recovery house, and then from a recovery house, I went to a halfway house, and then from a halfway house, I went to my restaurant. But when I moved in my restaurant, I couldn't afford to make the rent and have it a place, so I slept in the basement on a full-size bed for 4 months until I was able to get that up off the ground. And then I got a room in the building where the breakfast place was downstairs.
So essentially, you were homeless.
So yeah. And then I never looked at it like that, but yeah. So I slept in the basement while I was paying rent in the building that I occupied. That was my breakfast spot. And then when I finally got that up off the ground and I could afford a room, I moved upstairs in the rooming house. Now, mind you, in the rooming house, the lady that was the landlord was also my cook. So she was in my pocket for a salary, which I was paying her $7.50 an hour. She was collecting rent from me for being a tenant, and then she was collecting rent from me from renting a room.
So she got you coming and going.
Oh my God. Finally, one day I was like, something got to give. So finally, after getting the business up off the ground, now mind you, I'm running a small restaurant, and at the same time doing some catering, I was able to get and rent a house in West Philadelphia. So by this time, we talking about 2003, 2004. Got an opportunity to buy the place, and couldn't come up with all the capital. So a friend of mine offered to buy the house for me, and within a year, I buy the house from her. So things really started moving. 2005, 2006. So one of my customers that was coming in the restaurant, he was like, I got this place down on Ridge Avenue. I'm going to get it for you. Well, I really hadn't had that many years of experience in business. So I was like, okay. So he brought me this lease that was full of misspelled words and everything like that. And I was like, we can't submit this lease. I got to do it over. But I
Mhm.
was, once again, I need to tell you all that's listening that I was a novice and I didn't know much about business. So I need to tell you all that I gave this man $5,000 of my money and moved into a property that I had never even seen before. He just told me it's this restaurant on Ridge Avenue. Well, when I
Well, you was walking by faith or by foolishness?
both.
Mm.
So when I moved in here on November 30th, it wasn't habitable. It was an old building that hadn't been occupied in 3 years or 4 years. The office was terrible. It was no heat in there. There were no lights. There was no electricity, no gas. I immediately that one day had to move out of the place that I had just gave the man $5,000 and move into a bar at 29th and Ridge to the bang 'em up, shoot 'em out, Rusty Nail.
For all of y'all who are not from Philadelphia, that bar has a very notorious, what's the word I'm looking for here? It has a
Reputation.
reputation. It has a reputation.
Yeah. So moved into there December 1st. And the reason why I had to move into a bar because I had catering jobs. It was December.
So
You know,
you were carrying the new restaurant and the bar rent all at the same time?
well, the new restaurant, yes, I was carrying that, but at the $5,000 was part of the moving cost for the first month.
Mm.
But it wasn't habitable. So I stayed at the bar for a year. Now, mind you, I was paying $1,000 a month rent for a bar kitchen that was small.
Mm.
But the good thing about it was in the following year was my first contract year that I had gotten at the Dell. So I went to the Dell and I got the contract at the Dell. So that gave me a little bit more money. But my agreement was to pay $1,000 rent, half for the electric and half for the gas and half for the water. Well, I didn't know that in a bar where there's an ice machine, that during the summer months, that the water bill is not $100,
It's constantly running.
just constantly running. So in the months of July and August, when I primarily was at the Dell doing most of my cooking, the water bill was running up $700-800 a month. But I had to agree, and I agreed to pay half of this water bill.
Gotcha.
I
And
stayed.
just for everybody who's watching and listening on the replay, the Dell is a famous Philadelphia venue for concerts, outdoor venue. And so, it's not always inside; it's outside. So that's an important factor right there. So you're doing these events there at the Dell in the summertime, mostly because they do the whole summer series. And what was that like?
So that part was great because I could do my other catering there, so I didn't have to pay as much electric and gas, and I would just kind of like cook and commingle the catering with the Dell, and nobody knew the wiser until the Dell season was over at the end of August. But I was still in there in November. I still had the key, so I was still going in and cook. And I only had a flat top and a fryer, so I had to buy a little portable stove and do all my cooking like that. So I came back to finally got out in the Dell, out of the Dell about
What made you
November.
leave the Dell?
Well, I had to leave the Dell in November because at that point it was cold. Remember the
Okay,
Dell with the window is the outside
right,
venue?
right.
So left the Dell, went back to the Rusty Nail, catered there. But the problem with the Rusty Nail was I had limited hours. I was paying $1,000 a month rent, but I only could get in at 7 or 8 in the morning, which prevented me from doing catering breakfast because I had to get in there in the morning. So it just was just trials and trials and trials.
Now, were you still working at Olive Garden or Pizza Hut at this time?
At this point, no. It was
Mm,
all me. It was all hoop.
okay.
So I'm still struggling. I'm still fighting, and I'm still figuring out and trying to figure out how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to pay the gas, how I'm going to pay the electric, and still in this building that was inhabitable. So then the landlord came back to me and he said, "Man, we're going to get it together. We're going to get it together. It's going down. It's going down. All you got to do is give me another $3,500 and I'm going to make sure everything is right."
And when you say the landlord, you're talking about the landlord on Ridge, right?
I'm talking about the landlord on Ridge.
All right, just so everybody can follow along. Okay.
So I foolishly, wanting to believe, gave him another $3,500, and he hadn't done no repairs with my first 5,000.
So are we still walking by faith or being foolish?
At that point, it was foolish.
Okay.
It was foolish. So I'm still, still thugging it out. And then 2007 came up, and they had all these mayoral candidates that was running for mayor: Tom Knox, Shaka Fatah, Dwight Evans,
Yep.
Michael Nutter, and somebody else I can't remember. But anyway, mind you, I still really couldn't cook back where the place was inhabitable. So I took my stuff from the Dell and went to my house in West Philly and was catering out of my house. The primaries came up, and I knew that there was an opportunity with all the candidates. We talking 2008 now. Well, 2007, 8. I can't remember which was the mayoral year. I think 2007. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go after some of this business. So I started going after it in February. And when I talk about the importance of how you have to sow those seeds, when all of those candidates were running for mayor, the primary is in May. The election general is in November. So in February, I started going to each candidate's office, dropping off food. I would do tastings. Hi, by the way, I'm David Sims. This is my food. If you all have ever need catering.
So wait a minute. Hold on. You broke at this point.
Broke as hell.
And you are giving food away. Am I correct? I just want to be clear.
You are correct.
So you're giving away food to a lot of elected officials just to get your foot in the door.
Just to get my foot in the door.
And I want to add this side note, because I've been treasurer for many elected officials. When elected officials are first running, they don't have any money. A lot of times. They might have some here or there, but a lot of times they don't have any money. Now, we're talking about a mayoral race, so the mayoral race is a little bit different, but there's still not a whole lot of money around. However, the big money comes in after who wins that first primary election. Then the support comes in. The party, Democrat or Republican, we're in Philly, so it's Democratic, is going to come in, and they're going to usually start to help. So again, all right, Dave. So you did this truly from the muscle. You was broke. You was walking by faith part of the time, walking as a fool part of the time, but something told you to start making relationships with these people. What was that?
Because I just knew that there was something else out there for me, and I started gaining a little bit of traction. So February, I went around to all the candidates. March, I went around to all the candidates. So by April, I started planting the seed. Y'all might want to get some box lunches for the election in May, right? So I started planting that little seed. Now, mind you, that election was thick and it was heavy. It was like 5 people well known. So finally, my ship came in May. Somebody called and they said, and it was Tracy Hardy.
Shout out to Tracy Hardy. That's my man.
That's my man. He said, we want you to do 1,000 lunches for Tom Knox campaign. 1,000 lunches?
And it's funny. I forgot Tracy worked with Tom Knox. He was riding hard for Tom Knox.
He was riding hard for Tom Knox. So I was like, okay, I can do this, right? Then the next thing you know, the Evans campaign called. They said, we need 1,000 lunches for E-Day. I was like, 2,000 lunches. I was like, okay. Now, mind you, 2,000 lunches was over my head, but I had to figure it out.
Was 1,000 lunches over your head, though? At that point in time?
Right, was. So 2,000 was definitely over my head. And then another campaign called and said, we need 1,500 lunches. We had 3,500 lunches. I really got some things to figure out. So I did, you know what I did? I got a commercial refrigerated truck and I pulled it up on the side of the building on 24th and Ridge. And I went to the recovery program and I got 8 people to come in on Sunday, 8 people to come in on Monday. And we started making lunches on Tuesday morning at 4 a.m. And we just started pounding it out, pounding it out, pounding it out, pounding it out. But I had a system in place so that everybody could either pick up their lunches or um or either we could deliver it. The thing that worked in my favor is because when you have that many rovers and that many people running for office and that many people in a primary and that many vans on the street, the time was on my side because nobody was on time.
Mhm.
So that gave us time to keep on making lunches.
Let
So
me
I
ask you a quick question though. You had 3,500 lunches. You must have gotten some money to do that up front, a considerable amount of money to do that up front.
I did.
You just told us you were struggling with addiction. What gave you the strength to not take that money and blow it?
Well, by that time I was already clean because I got clean in 2000.
But they say, once an addict, always an addict.
I
So
don't believe that saying.
huh?
I don't believe that saying.
You don't believe that saying?
No.
Even though you see all these people relapse.
No, I don't believe that once you're an addict, or you're always an addict. I mean, people smoke cigarettes all the time and stop smoking.
Yeah, but they say the same thing about alcoholics. Like, if you're once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. So that's kind of like a recurring theme. But I bring all that to say there must have been something inside you say that I'm not going to blow this opportunity.
Absolutely, because I knew damn well I knew about 20 years old before I started doing crack at 32 that I ain't had no damn business doing no drugs. So by the time I got 32 and started getting high and getting clean, or started at 30 and got clean at 32, can't remember all the numbers, I knew I ain't had no business doing no drugs. So when I checked in, I was done. When I checked in the one day at a time, April 14th, 2000 to 2418 West Lehigh Avenue, that was it.
Okay.
So,
right.
so I'm fighting. I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking. And the interesting thing about it was, while I was standing there to pick up my check from Michael Nutter's office, which was a week before May, whatever that date was, two of the guys that was my competitors across the street at the restaurant, which at the time was Mom's Kitchen Table, they came in with box lunches in their hand to present their lunches. So now this is an important factor. They came in to present their lunches on the day when I was picking up my check, but the work for me had started in February. So when you run in a business, it's not about getting prepared. It's about being prepared.
And
you don't get ready, you stay ready.
Yeah. Why do you think they waited so long to do that?
I don't know. Maybe they didn't have the years of heartaches that I did, but I knew something had to change.
Okay.
And, I got that refrigerated truck on Sunday afternoon, and, it was go. It was all green. It wasn't a yellow in my mind. It wasn't a red in my mind. No kind of way. And then we still had to do 400 something for the laborers union that evening.
So we all in, you did about 39, almost 4,000 lunches / dinners for E-Day.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, but go back to where you were talking about you went to pick up your check for Michael Nutter and you saw the two owners come in. How did you feel in that moment?
That they should have prepared better.
That's it? You didn't feel any glee, any I'm the man, any...
No, I just felt like, no, I just didn't. I've had some poke my chest out moments, but that wasn't one of them. No, I just felt like I had to be ahead. I knew what I wanted. Once Tracy Hardy gave me that morsel and I knew that there was some more morsels out there, or maybe a whole ribeye steak, I wanted that ribeye steak because that ribeye steak is fatty. I didn't want that lean ass filet mignon. I wanted that fatty ass ribeye.
Okay.
So I went and I got those lunches and I was like, yeah, I can do this. So then that gave me more gusto to fight this landlord on, like, you got to do better. Well, in the meantime, add into the mix. Now we're going to add in the mortgage crisis in 2008. So mind you, while all of that was going on, I wasn't paying any rent in the building, but I was making modest repairs. And my landlord sold the building to a Korean lady for cash
Oh,
because his mortgage had ballooned to 3 times the amount. He had went to Gelt Financial. They gave him a mortgage that he couldn't afford, and now Gelt Financial started calling me saying, "You got to get out and you got to pay us such and such amount of money." And I said, "I ain't got to go nowhere. Why don't y'all come down here and see what this building is like?" But we ended up negotiating at $700 a month. And when they came down and they saw how that building looked, they couldn't believe it.
shout out to those adjustable rate mortgages that blew everybody's bank accounts up.
Yep.
Jeez, jeez.
So the Korean woman bought the building.
Mhm.
She became my landlord. She then started charging me $1,000 a month rent.
But I thought it was 7. So how'd it go from 7 to 1,000?
Because after the first year of which I was still in the lease, she was the owner of the building. And if I wanted to stay, she could raise the rent.
Oh, okay. So Galp foreclosed on it, and so during the interim period, they went to 700. When she brought it, they then went up. Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha.
So I paid $1,000 a month rent until she raised it to $1,400 and then eventually to $1,700. And I need to tell all the listeners out there from 2007 or 2008 up until 2019, I was in a triple net lease that wasn't to my benefit.
All right, wait
And
a
I
minute. You talking that big time talk. What's a triple net lease for the
triple
folks?
net lease means is that you pay for all the repairs, you pay for all the taxes, and you pay the rent. So I paid the use and occupancy tax. I paid the real estate taxes on the building. And whenever something broke, I had to fix it.
And most major retail locations are triple net leases.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
But
did that and did that for years.
mm,
A lot of people don't know on Ridge Avenue, there's something called a creek. So
mm,
when the creek would rise, the water would come up through the basement. I had a basement on Ridge Avenue that had a sub pump. When the
mm.
sub pump clogged, kind of like when the gun gets clogged.
Yep,
Yeah, same thing. So when the sub pump get clogged or when something messed up,
it
we would have
floods.
all of the water that would come in. Or if it was a power outage and the sub pump cut off and then it rained, all of that would come up. I can't tell you how many days that I and myself had to get and other workers had to go in the in the basement with the yellow boots on to pump out the basement. And
Mm.
I don't have to tell the listeners what was in that basement. You could just use your imagination.
It wasn't nice.
Wasn't
I've
nice.
seen that basement. It wasn't nice.
Yep. But I knew that I knew, struggling and fighting through it, I knew that I could do better and things were starting to get better. I was getting notoriety. I mean, shout out to so many people. Shout out to you, Kamari. Shout out to Erica Atwood. Shout out to Solomon Jones. Shout out to the writers of the Inquirer. Shout out to the writers of the Tribune. Shout out to Ayanna Jones. I mean, once I got my first interview in 2009 in the Inquirer, and I realized that public relations could help me. I tried to make sure to do something every month to keep myself newsworthy, noteworthy, or in somebody's face.
All right, so 2 questions. Who granted you that first interview?
Oh man, I can't remember her name. Can't
Do you
remember her name, but
do you
it was the Inquirer.
right? So for again, everybody who's not from Philly, the Enquirer is the major paper in Philadelphia. What was the interview about?
The interview was about me giving second chances, and it was June 1st, 2009. And I thank God for that writer because when she called to ask me what was going on Ridge Avenue, she was asking as a reporter what's going on Ridge Avenue. And I said, well, I'm going on Ridge Avenue. So I started telling her a little bit about my story. So she got intrigued and
So
she held my interview. Kamari, she did my interview in April. She held my interview until she could get it on the cover of the business page, which was Wednesday, June 1st, 2009.
Did you ever get that plaque?
Absolutely. It's in the office now.
I don't know if I saw that. Okay. All right. But what, because throughout this whole thing, the constant theme I'm seeing, and I kind of cheat because I know you personally, you're a constant self-promoter. So what gives you the chutzpah to keep doing that?
Well, it's funny you used that word because there was an article that was written about me in the New York Times, and that was the word that the woman used. She said chutzpah.
I never saw that article. Okay.
Okay. Well, you can Google it.
I'm gonna Google it.
Okay. Anyway, because I realized that you got to go out there and get it. If you want to be in business, you can't sit around and wait for people to just toss you a few crumbs or whatever. You have to put yourself out there. You have to be able to say, this is what I have to offer to the world. And if you don't do that, you might be cheating yourself.
You might also be cheating the world as well.
And how's that?
Because I believe everybody has something special, a gift that they're here to give the world. And by not promoting yourself, you're lessening your chances to give to the world, to serve.
Okay.
So
I fought, and in 2011 and 12, that old man called the city of Philadelphia with the tax came knocking at the door. They was like, we want our share. So mind you, now all these years had gone by, I hadn't paid no taxes. And I found out that it was worse to not file than not pay your taxes. Lesson to everybody, file your returns. Even if you don't have nothing to pay, file your returns.
Can you do that for me one more time so I can use this?
File your returns. Because guess what? If you don't file your returns, they're going to tell you what they think that you should owe them. And it ain't never right.
And that happens on every level. Federal level with the IRS, state level, city level, they all kind of follow the same blueprint. Dave just gave y'all a gem because that's real. Yep. That's real. File your taxes, folks. And that's not a shameless plug for being the Philly tax team, but it is.
Yep. And he's right. He's right. So, for years and years went by, didn't file, didn't thing. And finally, I guess in somewhere around 11, 12, or 13, I knew that there was a glass ceiling that I was going to hit. Y'all don't give Hillary all that credit for saying glass ceiling, because glass ceiling was my story before Hillary's story. So I say all that to say they came and they said, this is what you owe. And I need to tell you all that by the time that they said everything that I owed, it was either $38,000 or $46,000, but only like 12 or 13 of that thousand was actual principal. The rest of that was interest and penalties.
That's the way it goes.
That's the way to go. I'm telling y'all, pay your taxes. Get on a payment plan. So because I knew that I was going to hit that glass ceiling, I scrimped and I saved, and I paid the city of Philadelphia for 5 years straight. I started off at like $800 a month, and then when I fell behind and I had to do a new payment arrangement, I ended up paying the city some months $1,400 a month for 2 years straight.
How were you able to do that and keep business, pay rent, pay people? How were you able to do that?
I was still robbing Peter, Paul, Mary, Jane, Michael, Luther, Diana, and Aretha. I was robbing them all. But I say all that to say, and I'm going to fast forward to pandemic. That was a blessing that I paid all of those taxes. And then I got on that payment plan. And then Kamari got in there and he helped me out. And he showed me how it was that I needed to do things. And he helped me out with my taxes. And, we went back and forth over some years. And finally, I got my taxes under control.
And then he fired me, y'all.
Well, I went on to older pastures because I got an older, seasoned, more bookkeeper that Kamari didn't want to take no orders from. And I get that.
Yeah, that's not true. That's not true. And he didn't really fire me. That's a kind of a joke. Right. And by the way, his current accountant is the bomb. She's a friend of mine. Shout out to do y'all still have a relationship before I say her name?
Absolutely.
Okay, shout out to Erica Booth.
Yep. Erica Book Tax and Accountant Service in Lansdowne, PA.
Yes, yes. And so the theme is the same with me, y'all. I'll give Erica a shout out because Erica's my homegirl, and I don't believe in competition. I believe in cooperation, meaning that we could all get money together. And so even though me and Dave aren't necessarily client relationship, we can still get money together somehow, some kind of way. So now, Dave, you've done all this, right? You said fast forward to the pandemic. What point did you want to make with that?
Well, I need to go back just one more step. I
Okay.
need to go back to 2018 when there was a rainstorm in the middle of the summer, and when I was still on Ridge Avenue and I still had the Korean lady, and I was paying $1,700 a month rent when the ceiling collapsed.
hmm
And I brought the lady down during the rainstorm because she had a nailery up the street, and I showed her, and she said, "You tenant, triple net, you fix." And I turned around and looked at her, and I said, "I can do better than this." And I need to
Is that what you said in that moment?
That's what I said in that moment. I can do better than this. So what I did was I put up a black trash bag because I knew I still had orders to fill, and I knew I still had payroll and employees. And I was like, I'm I can do better than this. A month later, she put the hand into a realtor's hand, and a month after that, here come the letter: 30 days to vacate. Well, 30 days to vacate for what? For non-payment. I was up at that point. I had already paid my rent ahead. So they went to court and it got postponed. Went to court and it got postponed. So finally, by January, when I had to go to the court for the last time, and we talking February of 19 at this point, I had already had to talk with my staff, and I was like, "We might have to move, y'all." And one of my workers said, "We better than Ridge Avenue anyway." Well, that was all I needed. I went into court and I told him, "Give me 90 days and I'll be out." And I went out and I started looking for a space. I found the space that I'm at now, which is 1540 Wadsworth Avenue, and I went and got a mortgage. And now I am the proud owner of this building at 1540 Wadsworth Avenue.
Mm, mm. That was a blessing.
Yep.
Now, how did you do that so fast?
Because I hooked up with PIDC, and by this time, the major thing about this podcast, everybody's about relationships. By this time, by 2019, I had fed everybody in the city, and I had built some strong, healthy relationships, and I was able to get people to vouch on my behalf. I was able to get people to write letters, even though my credit wasn't where they wanted it to be. I had a strong presence of people that was behind me that said, "Hey, by the way, this is a great candidate for this mortgage."
And
And when I
so, real quick, PIDC, what is Philadelphia Industry?
Industrial Development Corporation.
Right. So, PIDC is a Philadelphia government, quasi government type organization.
Correct.
And you were able to get that building. I didn't want that to be left out there.
Correct. So I was able to get the building. But one of the other important things, not just about the building piece, but one of the other important things that I want people to understand is that going back to the tax situation, when they started giving out this money, the idle loan and this grant and that grant and the whole 9 yards, because I had already set up those payment arrangements, because PIDC had cleaned me up real nicely and had lathered me down and rinsed me off with the hose. Yeah, I was ready to get that money.
It's amazing what happens when your finances are in order when you are a small business. It just opens you up for a world of possibility that you really can't imagine when you first get started in business. But it's really that important. It's really that important. Having good books is that important. I know y'all get tired of me droning on about that, but I mean, Dave just told y'all that part of that lathering was them getting his books together.
Hmm.
That was a major part of it.
When
You
I
know,
went, when they did what a lot of people don't know about, is something called LexisNexis, and it is the three credit report, the higher level credit report. And when they started pulling stuff out, I had 14 judgments, and they went back to 2005. And I was like, wait, ho. Y'all only supposed to go back 7 years. They said, not when you got a commercial mortgage.
Right.
So I started getting some of those things knocked off. And the greatest myth in the world is if you get a judgment against you, you can pay off the judgment, but you also got to go to court and get it satisfied. So I had these judgments that I had paid off, but they had never been satisfied. And guess what? One of the girls that I paid off didn't want to send a letter. And that was from 2010.
Why didn't she want to send a letter?
Because she was still bitter. I was supposed to give her deposit back. I didn't know what I knew now. I didn't give her deposit back. She took me to court. She won. And then I didn't have money. Wait a minute.
You said give you the deposit back. So this is a catering client that sued you?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Dave, I want to thank you for being so transparent, because so many people come and they talk and they give these, sterile, washed down interviews. You giving up everything. So I appreciate you for that. So you've had clients sue you.
Yes. And because my story is somebody else's story that's listening to this, and I need to let y'all know y'all can make it through.
Right. That's a fact.
Somebody out there that's listening right now is going through the same thing. I can tell y'all about stories about how I didn't have enough money to make payroll, and I had to run my credit cards to make payroll, because the employees don't care about what you ain't got, or about how it is that I had to run a credit card through PayPal, and I could only get out $400, but I needed $2,000, and I had to send money to other people's payroll account and then run around and get their debit card, take the money out of a PNC bank, and take all that money that I got back and put it in Wells Fargo, and then take all those people cards back, all before 2:00 on a Friday afternoon.
I'm dizzy just listening to that. But whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. Okay, so you did all that. Now, are we at the pandemic?
We at the pandemic.
Okay.
And then the money started coming in. And I need to let y'all know that when they sit up and then people talk about they ain't trying to give Black people no money, that's a lie. Get your paperwork in order.
Say that again. Say it again. I
Get your paperwork in order.
No, the other part.
The part about them saying that they're not trying to give Black people no money. That's not true. I was able to get two EIDL loans. I was able to get two PPPs. I got an EIDL loan. I got a grant from Facebook. I got a grant from the National Minority Association of something. I got a grant from Jeff Brown from ShopRite. I got 2 grants from the city, 2 grants from the state. I got a grant from Google. I got a grant from Comcast. And I missed out on the grant from Hennessy. And guess what, y'all? It's still more money out there, and I'm still applying for grants. I'm going to drop a gem for y'all. Hello Alice. Anybody ever heard of Hello Alice? They got tons of money.
I've never heard of Hello Alice. That's new.
Yep.
That's new. I never heard of that. But since you brought it up, let's look at it real quick. So you utilize Hello Alice?
Yes, I have.
And they help you get grants?
They help you get grants.
Okay, Hello Alice. Your small business pad made simple. Okay. All right, so that's a gem, y'all. Hello Alice. Bookmark that and let folks know. All right, so Black folks can get funding just like everybody else is what you're saying. Just have your ish together and you can do some things.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So what happened during the pandemic? Because some things happened during the pandemic.
So what happened during the pandemic, and for me it was early, I had events that started becoming, I started having events that were canceled. So mind you, I had a 60th birthday party, a 50th birthday party, and another event for people the first weekend in March of 2000. And I didn't know how we was gonna make it. Most of my people, just like most of the rest of Americans, living paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
And on some weeks, me too. So I said, well, what are we gonna do? So I took all the food from all the three events that we had, and I started selling dinners that Tuesday.
Wait a minute. So you went back to the root. You went
I
back
went
to the
back
source.
to the source. And before there was popular word of pivot, or before there was, we got to change things. I had already pivoted. I had already said we're gonna go back to doing this. When they was talking about deem essential, I raised my hand. I said I'm essential. When they was talking about all these businesses was closing, I was like, I'm not closing. So I turned my 20-year catering business into a takeout, curbside, and delivery business. I
You weren't
signed up.
afraid of getting COVID?
So I might as well tell you, we had COVID. We had it early on. We had it in April of 2000.
Mm.
But back then, if you can remember, and I hate to say what I'm about to say, but it's almost now, COVID is almost popular. If you almost don't have COVID now, it's popular. Back then, it was like AIDS in the 80s. You kind of didn't tell nobody.
Right.
So three people had it. We closed down quietly. We just said we was tired. And after everybody quarantined, we came back. And we came out the gate and we just started running again. I signed up with DoorDash. I signed up with Black and Mobile. I signed up with Uber Eats. I signed up with Grubhub. There were still people sneaking and doing catering. We still did those events. And I just figured a way out. I would do video postings. Shout out to my man Kyrie Cherelle because he came and did a video. And I just kept on putting flyers out. I would put 1,000 flyers out a week
During the pandemic.
during the pandemic.
Where would you put these flyers out at?
And people doors. I hired a flyer crew. I took the money that I was getting from all those grants and stuff like that, and I pumped it into marketing and advertising.
What made you do that? Everybody was thinking the world was coming to an end. What made you pump into marketing and advertising?
Because when they was thinking that the world was coming to an end, I was thinking that I was going to be sitting around to feed the last people that was going to be left on earth.
So you was going to host the Last Supper.
I was going to host the Last Supper.
With Black Jesus and everything.
Right. And then in addition to that, marketing and advertising is something I never cut. That's a budget I never cut.
Why?
Because you have got to stay in the people's faces. And as soon as you go away, there's somebody else. There's a new latest and greatest. Do you think for a minute that I don't think that this 10 caterers standing behind me watching what I'm doing?
I mean, somebody literally said to me the other day that you got plenty of business.
Oh, really?
You have a monopoly on Philadelphia catering. I said, no, he doesn't. But they were like, yeah, he does.
I don't have a monopoly on the white people catering. Because if it was, I wouldn't be fighting with University of Penn. And yeah, I said it about the amount of business that I don't get. It would be 15 caterers on that list instead of just the 6 of us out of 66.
So on UPenn's catering list, there's 6 black caterers or 6 caterers of color?
6 minority caterers.
6 minority caterers. So it's not necessarily black or people of African descent.
No, I'm 6 black caterers out of
6 black caterers. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right.
And I have you say to the person that thinks that I have a monopoly, I earned Park Place and Boardwalk. Because I passed Oriental and Kansas Avenue and Kentucky State and Marvin Gardens. Yeah, I earned that.
But I want to back up because I didn't get a chance to ask you a follow-up question. You said once you got your first interview in the Philadelphia Inquirer, you said you wanted to figure out how to be newsworthy every month.
Every month.
How did you figure that out? And what was that process like?
I'm great friends with Solomon Jones, and he had done something around one of his books or something. And
shout out to Solomon.
Shout out Solomon. And he gave an event at Marathon Grill. and I gave $250 scholarship to a to a uh, to a worthy child. And he told me, he said, try and keep your name out there, um, newsworthy. I mean, I've done over the years. I've done Fox News at least 8 or 9 times. I've done ABC. I've done NBC. I've been highlighted through MSNBC. And I'm not saying all that to be bragging, but I'm saying all that to say
Well,
you
I
have
asked the
to stay
question, so you're
relevant.
not bragging.
Okay. So I say all that to say because you have to stay relevant. You have to stay current. One of the greatest things that I think that Ron Isley ever did was hook up with R. Kelly because he went and got somebody younger to make himself more
Get
relevant.
us in trouble.
Okay, I'm just saying.
No. I'm here for it though. I'm here for it though.
Right.
Well, not only did he get with R. Kelly, but he also got with Angela Winbush.
And he got with Andrew Winbush. So, I just think that first of all, I'm a believer of there's enough business out there for everybody. Now, how you choose to go about getting it and how you move, that's fine. I choose to get the business that I get, but I also choose to continue to give because I think the dues are till the day we die. So we all have something to give. Our time, our talent, our treasures. Even if it's something no more than, as caterers, we throw away an astronomical amount of food. And if you say that you can't afford, then what you're in essence saying, I can't afford to invest in myself for the next job.
So, question: tree lighting ceremony. Every year, you would do a tree lighting ceremony on Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody in the area was doing it. None of the elected officials in the area were doing it. You did that. Was that because you wanted to be newsworthy, or was that because it was good for the community, or both?
That was because it was good for the community. That was solely what that was for. It started out because I'm from New York, so I grew up going to Rockefeller Center. So I was like, how awesome would it be to bring Rockefeller Center to Ridge Avenue? And also because the district that I'm in now, shout out to Cherelle Parker, she did the historic Wadsworth Avenue's tree lighting ceremony. And I was back in Rockefeller Center. So I was like, oh, how can I do this? And originally it started with, me doing a little something and going in my pockets until the fourth or fifth year. And I said, wait a minute, somebody else got to pay for this. So I started asking for sponsors and donors. And by that time I had said, you know what? I fed a lot of people in this city. Some people owe me some favors. And whether you want to look at it as favors or givebacks or reciprocity, I was able to achieve it. And by the 9th year, I was able to pay all my vendors and still give out gift cards to people that came for their meal and their brand new coats.
So you gave out brand new coats, gifts to the kids, and I feel like there was one other thing you used to do as well.
The meal.
The meal, right? Well, that's a given, but right. Okay. I felt like there was something else, but okay.
Well, by the 9th year, we had a moon bouncer. We had
it was a whole festival.
It was a whole
almost.
Festival.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was nothing that North Philadelphia had ever seen before.
So, could you say that part of being newsworthy, and I know you did it for the community, but sometimes there are these, and I hate this word, synergies, where you can do good and do well at the same time, meaning that by doing good, you can also help your business. But the primary thing is to do good, right? But there's an overlap there. And so by going into somewhere that's never seen anything before like this, or haven't seen it in a while, you were able to keep yourself relevant as well. Because I know you got a lot of news coverage for that also.
That is correct. And I'm down with the synergy. Because in essence, let me tell you what I learned from Kevin Parker. Shout out to Kevin Parker.
Shout out to Kevin Parker. R.I.P. Kevin Parker.
May he R.I.P. Two things. One, back in the early part of the 2000s when he was down with, shout out to Boomy Fernandez from Adunde. He was down there for Adunde. And my phone was off. And he told me, come down here. And he put two $100 bills in my hand. And he said, you in business. He said, don't you ever let your phone get cut off again. Right? So I didn't. And I've done the same thing for other people. But what he taught me was when you plant seeds in somebody else's harvest, when they go to harvest, so do you. And that's one of the reasons why I'm a big component or proponent of the fall, because fall is the harvest. We put a table out every day now. I put out coffee, I put out potato chips, I put out snacks and things like that, bottled water, because guess what? There's people in this community, even though I'm in Mount Airy, that's hungry as well. So I'm doing my part to be able to be community involved with giving out to the community. Am I a community activist? No, I'm just a businessman that got my business in this neighborhood that's supposed to give back to something in a neighborhood that I take something from.
But to be honest, business owners are supposed to be the biggest community activists, not in the way that many people portray it, but we're active. We're talking to the people. We know what's going on in the neighborhoods. So, and a lot of times we're funding a lot of stuff. That's activism, right? That's getting people active. So, I don't always go with the run of the mill way of looking at things. Okay. Philly is a very special town because our politics tend to lead our business. But in most major metropolis areas, the business leads the politics. So I'm all for that. I'm all for that. I think that's great.
Yep, and I love what I do. And I haven't done my best work yet.
But let's go back to the pandemic, because you left out something that happened. Yeah, that happened that I thought was major. The riots.
The riots.
You survived the riots.
We survived the riots. I survived the riots because I believe in the seeds that I plant and what I put out in the universe. So when I moved up here on Wadsworth Avenue, they had these ugly black gates. And most of the businesses on the block have gates. I took my gates down because I wanted people to see in. I wanted people to see what it is that we have. And people's like, oh my God, you not worried? No, I'm not worried. No, I'm not sitting behind no desk. No, I'm not sitting up in here with no gun. No, I'm not putting up on my thing black business. And for those that needed to do that, you did what you needed to do. I pay my insurance every month, so I would only expect that if something happened to me, what I paid into would reap the same benefit of what I put into. And while that was going on, we had coffee and pastries for the National Guard that was out here as well.
Now, was there any damage to your building?
No damage to my building.
So you had all these people on Wadsworth Avenue whose place of business was vandalized, windows broken. Some of the gates, I believe, were actually torn down, and you didn't even have a scratch.
Nope.
That says a lot.
Yeah. And a lot of the looters were at the pizza store and the pretzel store, and mostly at the sneaker store. They demolished the store, up there. And they didn't go across from Walmart because that's across the county. And it's a shame the things that have happened. What's more ashamed is not just so much of the economic deprivation of us as a people, but the reason and the not reason behind the rioting. And when I say the reason and the not reason didn't necessarily have anything to do with Rodney King. It's not Rodney King, with George Floyd.
Yep.
But the socioeconomic deprivation of us as a people put into our mentality that this is what should happen for us to get ahead. And it's not.
But I also think we have to underscore this point that a lot of the people that started the riots were not people from the community and did not have melanin in their skin.
Correct.
So we get blamed for everything. But, there's actual footage of these antagonists. So, I always like to point that out because we also have in our mindset that we're always guilty. Always. Whether we're proven innocent or not, or whether we're proven guilty or not. We're always guilty. No, that wasn't us. Now, did some of us participate in it? Yeah, we did, but we didn't initiate it. Which one's worse? I don't know, but I think that's an important point to underscore. Just in my opinion.
For me, the gentleman that just got off in Kenosha is just as bad as the rioters. He was a rioter in his own way.
He was, but that's a whole other thing. He, air quotes, said he feared for his life. And there was another case very similar to him. I can't think of what it was. But to me, the bigger point was, why does this, what was he, 15, 16-year-old kid have this automatic rifle?
Right.
But
he's George Zimmerman in the making.
Yeah. How about that? Because they definitely caught him on tape talking about what he would do to all the looters and rioters. So, yep. So, all right. So you made it through the pandemic. You were selling plates and dinners. You're not doing that anymore. Why did you stop?
I stopped because several reasons. One, once Philadelphia was able to host events again, it meant that people would go back to freely having events. People were having events during the pandemic. Secondly, it meant that I could get back to my model. Third, I didn't want us to not have as much business with the eat and dine in takeout, and then the food not be as fresh as it could have been, and then somebody starts saying Eatible Delights is serving bad food. They wouldn't have said, "Oh, Eatible Delights, the takeout restaurant is terrible, but the catering is still good." No, we've been Eatible Delights, and just the way that food does, and then it's taken out and it's put on the steam table, and then there's a process of it, getting hot and how it holds and how it changes. I didn't want that anymore, and I wanted to continue to have a quality product. So I couldn't do both. It was hard enough keeping up with people doing a quality job while we were, with the amount of employees we had. And once the restaurant came, I really couldn't do both because I didn't have enough for the restaurant and the catering.
So the infrastructure wasn't there.
The infrastructure was not there.
Had the infrastructure been there, would you have kept it up?
I probably would have phased it out eventually, especially with the mindset of me working on the next project, the next restaurant, which is at 59th and Market.
Wait, say what?
The next restaurant at 59th and Market.
So we're doing a restaurant at 59th and Market?
We're doing a restaurant at 59th and Market.
And when is that coming?
Well, I realized that I kind of checked out of it, and because I was under the mindset there was no employees, but it just also lets me know that I have to work harder and I have to check in again, because if I don't put that energy and that spirit into it again, it's not going to happen, and I need to make that happen. So there is going to be a place called Ruth's Place, 5901 Market Street, right next to Curtis Jones' office, and it's going to be breakfast and lunch. And it's going to be a wonderful establishment. And I may even have, at times, some nights, either karaoke or a little live jazz. It's going to be a small place. Only 15 people will be able to sit. But it's going to be the destination spot in West Philadelphia.
Okay. Congratulations.
So, thank you. So
what made you do that?
Because they came to me and they said, "Hey, by the way, we got this and we want you." And I was like, "Okay, let me think about it." And I got a shout out to Atif Bostic to negotiate an amazing deal for me.
Shout out to Atif.
Shout out to Atif. I was able to negotiate something real nice. And when I had my first breakfast spot on Lehigh before I moved to Ridge, there's been nothing like it since. I mean, I feel like I was a trendsetter there. I had a website in 2002 before it even became fashionable to have a website. I had 15, 20 different types of teas, and I had flavor creamers, and I had a sandwich that you could not only get on whole wheat or white, but you get your sandwich on pumpernickel or rye or croissant or bagel or even raisin toast.
So remember what I said earlier, y'all, when I said he likes to do things a little bit different, a bit more extreme. Don't nobody eat no pumpernickel.
Sure they do. Let me tell you something. I'm gonna make
I'm
you a
playing. I'm playing.
BLT with beef bacon on pumpernickel
Okay.
with
All
mayo
right.
on both sides, and you gonna be like, damn.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna
But
remember that. You're
okay,
gonna have to make me one of those.
I'm telling you. But I'm telling you, it is and it's gonna be a different type of breakfast restaurant. And it's gonna be more than just fish and grits. Like I'm gonna have quiche and I'm gonna have frittatas. And for those of you that don't know what a frittata is, it's nothing more than a quiche without a crust. Or if you've gone to Starbucks and you've gotten those two little egg things, that's a frittata.
I call it eggs with potatoes.
Eggs with potatoes.
But all right. I'm happy for you. That's good. Congratulations. I mean,
Thank you.
I'm not gonna go into this much right now, but one of the things I am fascinated by, every black community has a lot of breakfast places that are not owned by the people that live in those communities. And if you understand the economics of those places, more of us would own those places. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm just going to leave it there. They are cash cows, literally. Yep. So, all right. So, what does that do to open?
Probably sometime in April.
Oh, okay. That's going to be fast. And why Roof's place? Is that someone significant?
My mom.
Ah, all right. I love it. So, you're naming the spot after your mom.
Yep.
Okay.
And shout out to the Bynum Brothers, the Bynum Hospitality Group. I also have a partnership with them, and the name of our group is called Sons of Ruth,
Hmm,
and their mother name was Ruth as well.
nice. And so, for you all who don't know, again, if you're not from Philly, you might not know this, but Zanzibar Blue, Warm Daddies, they have South right now, a few other places I can't think of all the time. I Relish,
Southside Banquet Hall. There was Paris.
right?
There was Warm Daddies, and there was even TSOP in Atlantic City. They had a share in that. They had Paris in Chestnut Hill, and there was a hotel in Cape May that they
Hmm.
had a share in a restaurant as well as the place at the stadium called I can't think of what the name was, but yes, they've been around. They are very successful black entrepreneur
Restaurateurs.
restaurateurs.
Yes, yes. And I'll say this: they've been around
30 years.
no longer.
Okay.
Yeah, longer. Um, because I hear stories about the very, very first Zanzibar Blue. Because I thought it was on
No,
Broad Street. I think someone else said it
no,
was on Walnut.
it was on 11th Street.
11th Street. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
So, it was more than 30 years. So, again, that's a testament of time. They still doing good business.
Yep.
So, all right. So, you've been through all this. You've been through every ups and down, and yet you are still here. You're still fighting. So, you got the new place. What's next?
The new place.
But after the new place, because I know that's
More concerts at the Mann Center for Performing Arts, more
okay.
dinner and jazz shows, and eventually a banquet hall.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So, I know I've kept you over time, and I appreciate you being gracious with your time. Any last parting words for a new and upcoming caterer?
Yeah. Um, be passionate about your product. Be passionate about your craft. Be willing to give. Be willing to have healthy relationships and partners. I got a couple caterers that I mentor, and sometimes I bring them in on events, and sometimes they bring me in on events. I'm very happy to say that I had an opportunity at Thanksgiving time to do catering for 800 people. Well, I didn't want to tie up my whole week with 800 people, so I broke it down. I gave one caterer 1/4, and I gave another caterer 1/4, and I did one half. It's that pie at the table. That pie is not sit there. It's not meant for you to sit there and eat it all by yourself. That pie is meant for you to share. And in my last parting words, always remember, it's enough out there for all of us. Be passionate about what you do. Be strong in your convictions, and file your taxes, even if you don't pay them. Get on a payment plan. Because the
Absolutely.
IRS know everything we do. Don't think that we don't.
They do. So before you go, Dave, let everybody know where they can find you, buy some food,
Okay.
see your next events, because I know you're going to be doing something soon. So where can they find you at?
So I am David Sims, affectionately known as the artist and proprietor. I am the artist because catering is about creating things, and I'm the proprietor because I am more than just the owner. And you can find us at Eatible, and that's spelled Eatible, Delights Catering.com. We're at 1540 East Wadsworth Avenue, and that's in the Mount Airy section of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19150. Our phone number is 215-236-3900. You can find us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, go to some of our videos. And if you just simply Google Eatable Delights Catering, you'll have a plethora of different things to choose from. You can go about 3 or 4 pages back on Google and find out that there is lots to offer. Shout out to my man Hayden for doing a good job at putting the website up in the chat room.
Shout out to Aiden. Appreciate Aiden. And we will put that out there for everybody to see. There we go. Bam. Thank you, Aiden.
Thank you, Hayden.
So, hold on, Dave. Don't go anywhere yet.
Okay.
But again, everybody, I appreciate you. I appreciate you all tuning into the Finance Rebel Show. Y'all know we're here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. And y'all know I love a good interview about a good Black-owned business, right? So keep my name out there, y'all, because I'm going to keep bringing out these good interviews for our community. Going to keep putting out good financial information because there's a lot of trash information out there, sadly. And some days I do feel that the trash information is winning, but it doesn't matter because I do believe that light will always overcome darkness. So keep tuned, keep me in prayers, and I will see y'all next time. Have a great weekend and happy holiday, y'all. Also, before I forget, happy Kwanzaa. Today is Ujima Cooperative Economics. So keep that in mind. Be mindful to do business with Black-owned businesses, spend money with Black-owned businesses. Please don't ask them for a discount, right? They are shuffling and trying to survive just with what they have now to provide a good product. And because I believe all Black businesses are trying to do good business. Some of us have gotten a bad rep because they might have had some fallings. But remember, grace is important. So remember to have grace on a lot of these people because they're suffering in the same conditions that you and I are suffering from. So everybody have a great weekend, a great holiday. Be good to yourselves, be good to your family. And remember, tomorrow's not promised. So go for what you need to do today. Later, y'all.
All right. Thank you.